G'day everyone, welcome back. We're talking another JavaScript lesson right now. This one's going to be called the ArrowCounter, and we're going to be using variables. It's the second half of lesson 4, talking about using variables, and we're going to make it count some arrows. Okay, so let's jump right back into our code. I'm going to start a new code project this time, so I'm going to open Code Builder. I'm going to press New Project. We're going to keep this as a JavaScript file, and this one's going to be called ArrowCounter. Okay, so this time we're going to be using an integer to track the number of arrows, and we're going to be turning that into a string so that it feeds back as data back to the user, so the person playing the game. Okay, so a very simple concept. Simply put, the arrows count how many times we've fired, okay, and it shows you how many times on the screen as well. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we actually need to declare a variable now. Okay, so the first variable is going to be called arrows. Okay, now you can call a variable anything you want. You can call it hello, you can call it world, it doesn't matter. We can call it arrows in this situation right now. Okay, so right now we're going to call it arrows, and then we're going to set it to be equal to 0. Okay, after that we need to have an event. Okay, we've covered events in the previous lessons. All right, this event is going to be based on every time the arrow is fired. Okay, so that one is going to be player.onArrowShot. Okay, now you would have seen that tab across and all the data coming through right then. That's exactly what we want. That's really good right now. Okay, so player.onArrowShot, perform everything that goes into this field here. Now that field is pretty simple. Basically, every time the arrow gets fired, we want to increment or increase the value for arrows. So instead of being 0, arrows now equals 1. Okay, now the best way to do it is to do arrows plus equals 1. Okay, the other way you can do it is to type in arrows equal arrows plus 1. So if it was 5 and you add 1 to it, now it becomes 6. If it's 6, now it becomes 7. Okay, so but the shorthand way we can do it in JavaScript is just go arrows plus equals 1. And that simply just means add 1 to the arrows variable. So if you, every time it's shot, that piece of code is going to get executed. Okay, now, in order to have it appear back on the screen for us, we have to use the player.say command. Okay, so player.say, and it's going to ask us now for 2 different things. Okay, so we can put in these parentheses bracket, we need to have an argument. Okay, it needs to know what is it that you want me to say to the user. Okay, now if I put in arrows fired, okay, it's going to simply say arrows fired. Okay, well, I mean, that's okay, but we wanted to make it a little bit more specific so that it actually shows how many arrows were fired. Okay, so I'm going to make the syntax just a little bit different. I'm going to say arrows fired, semicolon, then notice that space, and what I'm going to do after the quotation marks is I'm going to add in the actual variable. Okay, now that's different than typing it, let's say, this way. So if I typed it just by saying player.say arrows fired arrows, okay, that would actually say the phrase arrows fired arrows. Okay, by having that distinguished or differentiated from the actual quotation marks, it's going to take the value of arrows, not the actual word arrows. Okay, and that's what we want, because every time it's shot, that number that's stored into the arrows variable is going to be different. So after the 5th time, it'll say arrows fired 5. After the 6th time, arrows fired 6, and so forth. Okay, now there's lots of different ways that you can actually do those different things. Okay, what you've done here, very straightforward concept. We've added some literal text, or what we refer to as a string, and to that we've added an integer variable. So by doing that, we've now got the actual data coming through correctly. Okay, so if I simply go play now, come back onto my game. Now, in order to do this, I need to give myself some arrows. The easiest way to do that is to just put in a chat command. Okay, I'm simply going /give at bow. Okay, /give myself a bow and /give myself some arrows. Okay, and I'll make it 64. Okay, so in my inventory, I've got those things there now. You can just, whoops. You can just, search for arrows, click on the arrows and drag them, put them down into your inventory. Okay, but I just typed in the command then. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose those commands. Okay, whoops, wrong one. So you can see that I've got my little arrow. If I fire it, Oops, might just turn my help menu back on right now so I can see which one I'm doing. I'm firing my arrow. As I fire it, you can see that I've now got that message appearing at the top, arrows fired 3. If I hold my arrow back again, I might just get out of this view so you can see my character holding the bow. Okay, see how little bed, holding out my arrows, whoops. Holding out my arrow, fire, bang, arrows fired 5. Okay, do it again, arrows fired 6, and so forth. Okay, every time you do that, it's going to be able to reset. So if I go arrows fired again, because now it's started again, hopefully it should go back down to arrows fired 1. Okay, there's lots of different ways you can modify this code now. You can use things like make it so that you start with 10 arrows, okay, and then when you actually fire an arrow, it counts down 10, 9, 8, 7, and so forth. So they're your challenges, guys. Try to make it so it's as much detailed as you can. Modify the message, so you might have an if condition if you run out of arrows. Okay, what is it going to do after that point? Okay, that's the end of the lesson today, guys. That's ArrowCounter, and you're using a variable that you've defined as an integer. Okay, its name was arrows, and you've concatenated, or what we use as joined, a string variable together.